Hello there. Welcome back. Today it's going to be a pretty short lecture. We're going to be discussing pre-Columbian American theater. What do I mean by pre-Columbian? Well, pre-Columbian meaning before Columbus, meaning before European contact. So we're going to be talking about theater of the Americas before Europeans came and started stomping around like they own the place. And the reason I'm doing that is because the kind of uh, dual holidays this past Monday of Indigenous Peoples Day and Columbus Day, it seemed to be apropos. Incidentally, I hope you all are getting your midterms done. It's again under the quizzes tab. It's straightforward, just 50 questions. So let us get started. So pre-Columbian American theater. I'm showing a map of what is today kind of southern Mexico into like Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, northern Central America. And why am I doing that? Well, as we all know, one of the first civilizations in the New World, as it were, is the Maya, right? Now, the Mayan civilization, developed in this part of the Americas, right? And the Mayan civilization, similar actually, there's going to be a lot of parallels here between this and ancient Greece. But similar to ancient Greece, the Mayans were a civilization, but they were not a state, right? Just like the ancient Greeks, there was kind of a whole bunch of different kind of population centers that were united by the same culture and religion and language and all these sorts of things, but they were not unified politically, right? And so each of these different city-states did have their own rulers, their own, armies and that sort of thing. And as such, there was fighting, alliances, trade, cultural exchange, all of these sorts of things among the Mayan people. Again, as there also were similar to the ancient Greeks. And so there is a city in today kind of central Guatemala. It's called Rabinal, right? And that is a city that people have been living there off and on from way back before Europeans came here, right? So it's a city of Rabinal. And why do I bring that up? Because the only extant play that we have from pre-Columbian Americas, we know that there was theater, but we only have one play left. It is from that particular city. It's called the Rabinal Achi. Well, it's more like a little town, the Rabinal Achi. And what is it? It is a play that is a dance and theater public drama, right? Again, similar, right, to like the city Dionysia, right, in ancient Greece, right? It was kind of a public kind of festival play put on by the municipal authorities. Right, there was dance, there was theater, there was a lot of masks and colorful costumes and these sorts of things as well. The story of the Rabinal Achi, it's the story of a captured warrior of the Quechua people, and pardon my uh, um, my lack of linguistic fluency with Mayan. Um, so you'll just have to pardon me with that. So if you do know Mayan, you will probably be plugging your ears at my pronunciation, but that's okay. So it's the story of a captured warrior of the Quechua people who was captured by a warrior of the Rabinal people. And subsequently, this Quechua warrior was sacrificed by the ruler of the Rabinal people, whose name is translated into English as Lord Five Rain. Right, and this dramatized a historical, real-life, conflict between these two Mayan cities. Again, similar to the first extant play that we have, the Persians dramatized a bit of a conflict between Persia and the Greeks. And again, there were use of colorful masks and characters used to differentiate the characters. It is performed annually still on January 25th to honor St. Paul, the patron saint of Rabinal. Now, when I say that, some of you might be a little bit kind of, well, wait a minute. You're saying that it's pre-Columbian, and yet you're using the Gregorian calendar, right, which is a Western calendar saying January 25th. That is not a Mayan calendar. And you're talking about St. Paul, who is a Christian saint. Christianity is not of the Americas. That was brought in with the Europeans. How do you square that circle? How are we talking about a bit of theater that is culturally important and before European contact, but you're talking about it as being performed on a European date, to celebrate a kind of European brought over saint. How do you square that? So, in order to understand these kind of inherent contradictions when we're talking about the Rabinal Achi, uh, we need to understand what was happening at the time that we had this play, the text written. So, after the Spanish came over, right, they brought a lot of things. They brought guns, they brought horses, they brought Spanish. But one of the other things that they brought was Christianity, right? And uh, part of their what they thought their mission was to disseminate and evangelize for Christianity among, right, the population whose land they came to, right? They would call, like, uh, savage and uncivilized and whatever, even though that's, you know Eurocentric and terrible. But they saw Christianity as something that was a civilizing force, right? And they thought, therefore, anything that was unchristian was inherently uncivilized. And therefore, if you want to civilize people, kind of non-Christian religious traditions are a barrier to that. And so those must be pushed out in order for civilization to come, right? That is the Eurocentric bigoted version, but that's what was prevailing. Um, and so this particular play, the Rabinal Achi, it does not have Christianity, right? It has a traditional Mayan, um, cosmology, right, and kind of religion in it. And one other thing that it had was human sacrifice, right? There is, at the end of the Rabinal Achi, as I said, this Quechua warrior is sacrificed by the ruler of the Rabinal people, Lord Five Ring. Now, again, this was not a literal sacrifice of the actor who played the Quechua warrior. It was, dramatized in the story. But the Mayan people did have human sacrifice. And this is an artifact left over. Although in the text of the play, it is more presented, I think, a little bit more like capital punishment rather than kind of a ritualized sacrifice. But there you go. That distinction, I don't think, mattered too much to the Spanish. And so we have texts of Spain when they came and had this kind of temporal authority over the indigenous populations. They have time and time again correspondence and these laws and edicts saying, okay, we have to ban these different types of performances. We're going to ban everything that does not mention Christianity, certainly that it mentions other religions. We're going to ban everything that has human sacrifice, and as a way to push these other cultural traditions out to make way for Christianity and therefore civilization and also control. Right? And so, in this play, it does have other religion and it does have human sacrifice. So the fact that this particular play has those elements that the Spanish banned, we know that it came before, right? Plus the European, the French guy, this French cleric, Charles Etienne Brasseur de Bourbourg, right? He could ask around. He could say, hey, how long have you been doing this play? And they said, oh, well, long before you guys got here, right? And so we know that it's from before European contact. Now, why in the world do we have this play, the first copies of this play written in French, right? How do we have this non-European play written in French? Well, the reason was it's because it was passed down orally, right? The script, as it were, was passed down in oral tradition. And so there wasn't, paper and pen that the Mayan actors used, right? It was just, again, oral tradition. Plus, any other kind of copies would likely be destroyed by the Spanish as well. So this French cleric, who was not part of kind of the Spanish civic authorities, he came by along, he kind of tagged along, and he had a little bit more of an anthropological interest in the culture rather than kind of a proselytizing, evangelizing interest. And so he saw this play being performed. He knew that it was an artifact from before Europeans got there, and he decided to, he knew Mayan, he decided to write it down and translate it into French. And so that's why that is the 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 chain of how we have this pre-Columbian play today. Um, an oral tradition Mayan play that we have a written copy of in French. Um, so if we actually look at the text, right, this is an excerpt from the Latin American Theater Review. So I'm not expecting you to read this, but you will see that I have in these big, huge blocks, these are different characters speaking. And so, from the left, right, you can see page 18 on the upper left, and it goes kind of, um, uh, top down, top down, top down, top down, top down. It's not left to right and then left to right all. So page 19 is below page 18, not to the right of it. And you can see after the Quechua warrior at the beginning has these 5 lines of text, and the Rabinal warrior has this big, huge block. Quechua warrior has big paragraph. And the pages, the paragraphs get ridiculously long, right? Over a couple of pages, paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of speech, right? Which again, it emphasizes the kind of oral tradition and not kind of the back and forth, and how these different characters are they're expounding on history, right? And so it's about the history and the cultural tradition that's being passed down, and the story that these people are telling, rather than kind of the character development between them. So an example, right? Chief Five Rain, and again, I'm not a Mayan linguist, so pardon the terribleness of my pronunciation, right? But so he would say, right, valiant one, stalwart man of the Kavak Keche, right? So this person that he captured. I thank heaven and earth that you have come to the vast walls of the vast fortress where I extend forth my shade and my majesty. I, the grandfather, the chief Five Rain, speak then. Reveal why you imitated the cry of the coyote, the cry of the fox, the cry of the weasel beyond these vast walls, beyond the vast fortress, in order to bring forth my white children, my white sons, in order to bring them outside the vast walls, the vast fortress in Ishimche, in order to try to discover the yellow honey, the green honey of the bees, the nourishment that was mine, the grandfather, the chief Five Rain on the vast walls in the vast fortress. You are also the one who kidnapped the 9 or 10 noble children, the white sons who were about to be taken to the Quechua mountains, to the Quechua valleys. If my boldness, my bravery had not been found vigilant, because there you would have severed the root, the trunk of these noble children, of these white sons. And he says white, not to mean kind of ethnically white per se, but to mean kind of pure. And, in a lot of cultures, lighter skin meant that you did not have to work outside. Just because, that there's less sun to make your skin darker. And so, the fact of, purity and wealth is what he's talking about, these noble children of his. Essentially, you're going to kidnap all my kids and make sure that my line of succession ends. Right? You came also to kidnap me at the baths of Tohill. There I was seized by the sun of your arrow, the strength of your shield. You shut me up among the stone and lime walls, among the Quechua mountains, among the Quechua valleys. There you would have ended by severing my root, my trunk in the Quechua mountains and valleys. But my valiant one, my stalwart, the most remarkable among the stalwarts, the great warrior of Rabinal, freed me from there, pulled me out of there by the strength in his arrow and in his shield. Had it not been for my valiant one, my stalwart, you would have certainly severed my root, my trunk. Thus he again brought me to the vast walls, to the vast fortress. Right? So you'll notice there's a lot of repeating, right? He talks about, the vast walls, the vast fortress, the mountains, the valleys, which again reinforces this kind of oral tradition aspect of it, right? And this kind of more ritualized memory, and imparting these almost talismanic words. Okay? Then you also laid waste 2 or 3 towns, the deeply ravine cities of Balamvak, where the sandy soil resounds under the footsteps of Kalkalraha, Kunu, Gozabal Tagatulu, called thus. When will the unrestrained desire of your heart, your determination, your boldness cease to dominate you? When will you allow them to act? When will you allow them to move? Did not this determination, this daring remain buried, concealed in Kotom, in Tikaram, in Bele Moko, in Bele Shume? Was not this determination, this daring buried, concealed by us, the governors, by us, the rulers in each of the walls of the fortress? But you will pay for these misdeeds here between heaven and earth. You have said your last goodbye to your mountains, to your valleys, because here you will die. You will perish under heaven, above earth. Heaven and earth be with thee, man of the Kaba Keche. Right? So this is the speech in which Chief Five Rain pronounces like, hey, you kidnapped me and tried to bring me to your town. You tried to kidnap, my my children, right, to cut my line off. And if it had not been for this warrior, this cool guy of, that I know from our town, you would have succeeded. But now that you've been here, like, now you're gonna die, right? So that's this speech, and it does have that kind of heightened sensibility, even of kind of the ancient Greek texts as well. So I just wanted to share that with you. Cool. So thank you all very much. I, again, do your midterm, and also, obviously, engage in the discussion on this lecture. But I hope you all are doing well, and I will see you next time. Bye.